everyone, my name is Elle and I'm currently a senior in college at SUNY Potsdam. The goal of this vlog is to capture the research process of the digital ethnographic project. I'm currently using digital ethnography to gain insight into social media and how it's being used to influence modern concepts about health and wellness. More specifically, I'll be looking at the ketogenic diet and how social media sites like Instagram and Reddit are being used to influence concepts about this diet through their affordances. So the ketogenic diet is a diet in which you get most of your calories from fats and proteins rather than carbohydrates. Now, the concept of this diet is not new. James Wheelis, in his 2008 article, History of the Ketogenic Diet, describes keto's 1920s origin of being a diet treatment for patients with epilepsy. Today, many people use a ketogenic diet to manage other chronic diseases as well as for weight loss. In researching modern concepts about the ketogenic diet through social media, I'm planning to answer the following questions. What concepts about the ketogenic diet are being merited on social media? How have certain foods deemed healthy by the ketogenic diet gained a health halo through social media? And are the popularized concepts of the ketogenic diet the same concepts used by those who use the diet for chronic disease management? Overall, these three questions will be guiding my research, and I'm hoping to learn more about why the ketogenic diet appeals to such a large audience. So to answer my proposed research questions, I'll be using both discourse analysis and observation. For Instagram, I'll be using hashtags such as hashtag keto, hashtag keto diet, hashtag ketosis, and hashtag keto lifestyle. I'm specifically looking at what kind of posts people are including underneath these hashtags, as well as how the audience is perceiving and reacting to these posts. When collecting this data, I'll be looking for multiple things. First, I'll be looking at the actual image and the information it's sharing. Second, I'll be analyzing the caption for the information that may conceptualize ideas about health and wellness. And finally, I'll analyze the comment section the same way. I'm looking for suggestive patterns of diction, jargon, or phrases that could illustrate the ideas of health and wellness surrounding keto on Instagram. I'll be using Instagram's archiving tool to organize my data on the app itself, and then I'll be using Google Docs to code it. For Reddit, I'll be using two specific subreddits, Keto and Lose It. Here, I'm using discussion posts and the comments made on them to look for common themes discussed in this platform. I'll be collecting data in two specific ways. First, I'll be reading multiple hot posts that pop up when you first glance at the subreddit. I'll also be using Reddit's search bar to search directly in this subreddit for specific words and phrases such as social media, Instagram, and healthy. From posts related to these terms, I'll be observing the interactions that happen here to gain a glance at keto's relationship with these terms. Now, I would assume that most people who are on here are a member of the keto community themselves. So to widen my results, I'll be using Lose It as well to further my insight into keto's relationship with specifically health and weight loss. All of this data that I collect from each platform will eventually be coded and used for further analysis. On the topic of how social media influences concepts in health, scholars have done a variety of research. In Carefully Eating, Bodies, Foods, and Care, Rousseau describes the way in which social media allows consumers to share their ideas about modern carbohydrate-rich diets. Moving forward, another scholar named Bug has researched why low-carbohydrate, high-fat diets are interesting to Norwegians. Bug notes that the concept of agency over one's health to be a large factor in this interest. Rousseau and Bug highlight the specific use of social media sites and their ability to influence concepts about health. While Rousseau and Bug offer good insight, there is an overall lack of research in the appeal of these diets. And the ketogenic diet has not been studied that much. The political associations with eating a low-carbohydrate, high-fat diet has led me to believe that there's likely to be a connection with the ketogenic diet as well. However, keeping this in mind, it might bias my research in that I'm only looking for a political stance rather than a nutritional stance. Overall, there seems to be a limited number of studies that illustrate the correlation between social media and the influences it may have on concepts of health and wellness. The ketogenic diet seems to be one that isn't often covered in this kind of research. Therefore, my research project will fill a gap in that it focuses on Reddit, Instagram, the ketogenic diet, and how technological affordances are influencing the concept of this diet. Today, I finally figured out how to categorize all the data that I've been seeing on Instagram. I've been a little overwhelmed. I've taken the time to really sit down and look at all the posts that I've archived, and I've realized that they fall into 4 main categories. I suppose the issue I was having here was I didn't know how to make sense of all of the data on Instagram because I felt like the comment section isn't what I expected it to be. I think I've been comparing the kind of data I've been collecting from Reddit to what I've been collecting on Instagram. That's obviously a problem because Reddit is inherently post discussion based. Instagram is inherently a visual platform. And I think my preconceived notions about what would be happening in the comment section has been a wall that I've been hitting. Now that I've let go of that, it's starting to make a lot more sense. So it's late at night and I'm at the library and I'm on Reddit and I'm having trouble figuring out what it is that I'm going to be looking at on Reddit. There's over like 1.3 million users subscribed to the keto subreddit. That's hundreds of thousands of posts to be looking through. It's been a lot to look at. So far, I am noticing some themes, but I'm thinking that of the 20 or so themes that I've been seeing so far, I think that the only way I can continue to mine for data is to use Reddit's search bar to specifically look for more information that would fit that theme. I feel like this is going to sway my data a little. Because of the time constraints, I'm realizing that I can't go in depth as I wanted to with all of these topics, and I'm going to have to narrow down the themes that seem to be most noteworthy in this subreddit. When reflecting on my data, it's important to look at my biases. My position as a researcher is likely going to bias my data. First and foremost, I am only 22 years old, and this is the first time I've ever conducted any kind of ethnographic research before, let alone a digital ethnographic project. In terms of my relationship with the ketogenic diet, it was about 6 years ago when I first heard about it. At the time, I was a vegetarian, so I had my own beliefs about the effects that meat has on the human body. So when my friend came to me and told me about the ketogenic diet, I thought it was a little crazy. At this time in my life, I wasn't an avid critic of the Western medical system as a whole. My friend wanted me to try the diet with her, but I was a vegetarian, so realistically speaking, that was not viable for me. And I had a lot of questions about what this diet was and why someone would claim that this style of eating was healthy in comparison to what I personally believed as a vegetarian at the time. So I actually ended up Googling it and I found out a little bit about the history of it. I had learned that it was a medical treatment in the 1920s for children who had epilepsy that couldn't be cured otherwise. Coming to this project, I had known that piece of information. That intrigued me as to why this diet was even popularized today. But overall, it's important to know that I did have some kind of prior relationship to the ketogenic diet and that I had people in my own life doing it. Without a doubt, this position biased me, especially when it came to choosing the questions that I did. I already had a preconceived idea about what this diet was. I knew the history of it. I knew it was popular on social media sites like Instagram as well as YouTube. I also think it's important to know my academic background as well as all of its related content. I've often criticized the Western medical system and all of its constitutes. So in this case, that would include government-funded nutrition information, like those that the United States Department of Agriculture or USDA prescribe. Therefore, when I was starting to see the political associations with keto, I often had to remind myself to take a step back and distance myself from what was being said before I looked at it in my personal perspective. I also think it's important to note that when I was picking the themes out of the keto subreddit, I didn't want to choose this political theme simply because it was something that interests me. I would definitely say that my own political stance has impacted the way in which I interpreted this data that fit within the theme of anti-capitalist rhetoric. I stuck with comments that were more explicit in order to ensure that my own bias wouldn't be reflected in this particular data. This also was a challenge for me because of the IRB policy in that I wasn't allowed to contact these individuals who were making these statements, so I couldn't clarify what it was that they were trying to say. When it came to Instagram, at times I found myself disagreeing with what these posts were portraying. Often what I did is I would archive this post and I would go back to it at a later date in order to eliminate my initial bias. Therefore, the reason why these images were posted, why the hashtags were used, how they're being conveyed to the audience via the comments, whether good or bad, can't be fully known in this case. Overall, my history with the ketogenic diet has biased all aspects of my research. I do think that's natural in that as an ethnographer, you can never fully remove yourself from the topic at hand. This project serves as a stepping stone for more research that can be done on the topic of how social media is influencing concepts of health, and specifically how the ketogenic diet is being portrayed or perceived on various forms of social media.